the best!
Welcome back to math class. Today we're going to be talking about probability with multiple independent events. Remembering from last year that independent means that what happens to the first event does not change the outcome of the second. So for example, with 2 coins, it doesn't matter what happens to the first coin. The second coin still has a 50% chance of heads and a 50% chance of tails. I'll actually be using 2 coins for our first example. There are many ways to show all of the outcomes for multiple events. One of the simplest is a tree diagram. For a tree diagram, you just branch off the number of possible outcomes for the first scenario, in this case 2, heads and tails. Then from each one of those sections, branch off for the number of possible outcomes for the second scenario. In this case, that's 2 again. Once you're finished, you can total up the number of branches on the end to find your total number of possible outcomes. Now, if I wanted to find my desired outcomes, I would just look at the chart. If I wanted the coins to both come up the same, I'd circle the path where I get both heads and both tails. This gives me 2 desired outcomes of 2 out of 4, or 1/2. Or if I just need heads to come up at least once, I would circle all the options where head shows up. This would give me 3 possible ways for a probability of 3/4 or 75%. This method works for very simple options with very few outcomes, but can become very messy very quickly. So if you were using like dice or anything that has more than 2 options, it just gets to be a lot of space being filled. So for 2 events, one of the easiest and cleanest ways to sort out the information would be with the box or area method. Here you set up a table with the column on the left showing one set of outcomes and the row on the top showing the other set. So here I would have heads and tails on the top, heads and tails on the side. This shows me I have 2 options on the top and 2 on the side. And using what we know about area, this would give us 4 possible outcomes, no counting required. Now you can fill in the chart. If I want to check for different scenarios, it is very similar to what we did with the tree method where we circle the desired outcomes. And we'll go over this a little bit more in our next scenario. So for this example, we have a coin and a spinner with 4 equal options. If we set up our table with coin on the left and spinner on the top, we see we have 2 options on the left and 4 options on the top, giving us an area of 8 for a total of 8 possible outcomes. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in my chart. Now if I'm wondering what the probability of rolling a 1 and flipping tails is, I search for that option. There is only 1, so my probability would be 1/8 or 12.5%. If I was wanting to roll an odd number and heads, I would go ahead and circle all those options and see that I have 2 possible outcomes for a probability of 2/8, which would be equal to 1/4 or 25%. And one last example, if I was needing to find the probability of getting an odd number, so once again finding all of those options gives me 4 out of 8, which would be 1/2 or 50%. So that is all for today's lesson. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to call or message me, and I will see you next lesson.
Oh no, it's over.